Hello and welcome to Toastmasters in Conversation, where we empower you with tools and techniques to navigate your personal and professional life. Today, we're going to be talking about improving your communication skills. How many times have you been in conversation with someone, whether it's in person or via text, and everything did not quite go as planned? You're left wondering, what just happened here? Communication can be so tricky. And so today we're going to be talking about how you can improve yours. I'm not alone. I'm here with my fellow Toastmasters and Nedbank'ers, Njabulo Thela and Brigitta Ryder, as we unpack this very tricky subject of communication. Njabulo, we know that communication can be tricky, but how can we truly navigate it?
Thank you, Maud. I think the biggest challenge with communication is the illusion that it has happened. And typically what causes this is the person who's communicating dumps the message on their audience using their preferred style and then expect the audience to receive it without really putting much thought to how they communicate. What I've found is that each person has a preferred communication style that they use. So based on your preferred communication style, that's typically what you default to whenever you communicate. But the recipient might have a different communication style to yours, and that's where the mismatch typically happens, because you as a communicator are using your preferred style and they're not receiving the message the way it's intended. So what I've learned to be key is understanding the recipient's communication style. Most of us are comfortable with the concept of the 5 love languages, and one of the keys there is not using your love language to communicate to your partner, but discovering what their preferred love language is and using that to communicate with them. And for me, communication is exactly like that. When you know your audience's preferred communication style, you then use that to communicate with them. The message tends to land better, and these difficult, awkward situations with regards to communication are then reversed. And the additional thing for me then is that you have to think before you communicate. We often think it's natural to all of us, but a lot of thought needs to be applied. Therefore, think before you communicate.
I love this concept of communication languages. We think of love languages, but imagine if you were to find out what your communication language is. What is that of the person you're speaking to? And how do I adjust my communication style to suit the person and not the other way around? And that's probably why communication becomes so tricky as we navigate it. But then, Brigitta, how then do we truly improve our communication skills?
So for me, I think a useful communication tip is latching on to what Njabulo was saying about think before you speak. So think is a very useful acronym that you can use to help improve your communication skills. So let's look at that. T is for true. So if something is not truthful, then rather let it not be said. H, is it helpful? So whatever you're communicating to the person that you're communicating it to, is it building them up? Is it beneficial? Is it useful for them? The I is for immediate. You get those now and not yet conversations. So what do I mean by that? If you come home from work and you've really had a stressful day, as you walk through the door, you're confronted by your spouse who now wants to have a conversation about the detailed planning for your next holiday. You know, that's not the right time. So rather not have that conversation in that moment. The N is for necessity. So what do I mean by this? Here I want to relate to a concept called relational capital. And what that means is, how well do you know the person? How long have you known the person you're communicating with? Because there's a time and a place to communicate your own personal preferences and your own personal wants in a conversation. So if you're conversing with someone where the relationship is new or it's a fragile relationship, then best you rather bite your tongue and keep your personal preferences to yourself if you really want to make an impact in your conversation that you have with the person you're conversing to. And last but not least, the K in thing stands for kind. So you can have the truth, you can let it be helpful, you can let it be immediate, you can let it be necessary. But if your message is not clothed in kindness and the way in which you communicate with the person you're communicating to, the impact of your message will not be long-lasting. We can all relate to an example where we've conversed with someone and the way in which they've spoken to you has been either brash or harsh or maybe even used cruel words. that message has really left you not feeling great. And it's something that you rather want to not remember going forward. So whenever you communicate, clothe it in kindness, and you certainly will have a positive impact on the person you're communicating to.
We certainly want to communicate with impact, but for us to do that, it does require some thought on our part. It can be tricky, but with the tools and tricks that we've shared today, it's definitely something that you and I can improve on. Think is all about asking yourself, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it immediate? Is it necessary? And most importantly, is it kind? You and I want to communicate with impact, and we certainly can do. So I hope you found today's Toastmasters in Conversation useful and will communicate with impact. And we'll see you next time for another Toastmasters in Conversation.